Good morning and welcome. Welcome to this space, the first time since being called to this congregation that I have the great honor of being part of this worship service inside the walls. My name is Donna Dahlham, and if you're joining us in person or on Zoom, I am so glad that you're here. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel and care for the earth. Each month, Allen Avenue supports a nonprofit organization whose mission and work aligns with our Unitarian Universalist principles. The Share the Plate recipient for September is Family Promise, a program this congregation is deeply connected to and supports and involved with. And let's see, oh yes, I think I recognize all of you, but for folks at home, if you are new to us, please go out to our website and fill out a welcome card so we can know more about you.
Our call to worship words this morning are from the Reverend Karen Johnston. We could be elsewhere this fall morning. We could be elsewhere, still hiding under the covers or hanging out with funny cat videos, given the news of horror and dismay that greets so many mornings. Yet we came together this morning. We gather here every Sunday morning, known by the company we keep, sowing and reaping the seeds of change from deep within the earth, choosing the possibility of thriving, learning how we might lead in love. What a time to be alive. What an amazing thing to gather together for this blessed hour. Let us begin our worship together.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know the way. And we will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know the way. And we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. 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 Oh yeah, yeah.
We light our chalice this morning for the gratitude of all the ways that we get to be together in person, even though our seats are like 6 feet apart in the building, together online, allowing accessibility for those who aren't able to be here. We light our chalice for the possibilities of what will unfold this year together in our shared ministry, knowing that we carry forward a long history of people who believed in the things to come. Thank you, Emily. So I'd like to tell you a story, and truly for all ages, a story about two coaches. And you'll notice I have my sneakers on. I have a t-shirt on. I have my sports hat, kind of a cozy set of pants, good to be prepared to move around. And a mitt, which I also discovered goes on the left hand. So lots of lessons this morning. So what I want to tell you about is a story about a little girl who once upon a time did t-ball. It's like the ball doesn't go very far if you're lucky enough to hit it. And then this girl continued to do sports and made it all the way to softball in middle school. And her name was Dawn. And so there's this really kind of, there's some peer pressure sometimes in middle school. So the game is going, there's two teams and like literally
the other
they're
one
all
you
people
buy
in
them,
the neighborhood, so they're all friends. The bases are loaded in the other team, and Donna's, well, don't laugh, but she's out in left field. And so it's like a really important part of the game, right? There's the batter and the pitcher, and I'm ready. And then Russ, I guess you could do baseball, but we'll pretend it's an open game. Russ has his bat and he slams that ball further than Donna thought it would go. I think it went way out into the woods. It was so disappointing. Everybody made it home. My team lost. I was really disappointed. I went over to my pal Keith and said, Keith, I can't believe I missed that ball. He says, that's okay, it happens. I went to the other teammates. I said, Rick, I can't believe it. Yeah, I can't believe I missed the ball, but good job on your team. We won. And then the coach comes up, says, Donna, I told you, get out further when the ball is going to be hit. We go home. I go up to my bedroom. My mother calls me, Donna, it's dinner time. Usually I'm all about the food, but I don't feel like eating tonight. So I just stay in my room. But I have to get up and go to school because, well, we're lucky enough to be able to go to school now. So I get up and I go downstairs. And my mother says, well, where's your softball stuff? Don't even practice. I remember, so I don't feel good, Mom. I don't want to go to school. End of story 1. So pretend you're on Zoom, and for those of you who are on Zoom, is that like a thumbs up or a thumbs down on coach number 1? Thumbs down. I want you to feel like you're still participating like you did on Zoom. So thumbs down. Next. So I'm still Donna. Bases are still loaded. Anna's on one of them. She's like pretty excited because she remembers what happened last time. But Nancy has the bat this time. So I'm like, okay. I'm going out further this time because I remember what happened last time. We have a different coach today because the other one got fired because nobody who gets an all thumbs down gets to stay working with kids. So I'm ready. Nancy hits that and it hits the tip of my mitt and I can't believe it. Oh my gosh, it went over into the trees again. So Anna's pretty excited. She made it home. Russ and Keith also made it home. And it also was the end of the game. So guess what? My team lost again. Congratulations, Russ. Yeah, good game. Rick, I'm so disappointed. But Rick says, it's okay, it's just a game. It's just a game, Come on over here, team, the coach says. Coach says, Donna, don't worry about it, it's just beginning. We're gonna get a chance to practice catching in the outfield next week, maybe even tomorrow. Because today's Tuesday, right? Tuesday morning, tomorrow's Wednesday, we're gonna have another practice. And all of us are gonna get to work on this thing. It takes a whole team. Don't worry about it. Well, when I go home, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. Up on the shelf it goes. I sit down and catch a little breather because I am a little tired even though, maybe I lost the game. But oh, it's dinner time. I can't wait to go downstairs and tell my mom what's going to happen tomorrow. Coach number 2, everybody on Zoom, here's your chance. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Yeah, thumbs up. This coach gets to stay for the rest of the year, by the way. Very exciting. So as you can see, I tried to prepare for this time for all ages. As I mentioned, I've got my cozy clothes on. I'm going to change into my preaching shoes. Not that sneakers aren't comfortable, but I really like the black shoes. Mr. Rogers was my favorite growing up. It's a little too warm for the sweater. But I think he'd appreciate the shoes. So there's that part. And the other part, you see, there's a dog under here. It's very cute. This goes in my office just in case any of you ever want to get down. And the dog. So here's some stoles and some robes. So to get a stole, I guess you could just take one. Kate wanted to know if my spouse, well, what would happen if I wore one? I said, well, nothing, but you didn't go to seminary and you didn't make it through all the hoops for the UUA, which is like going to seminary twice, literally. So this is what I get when I got ordained, just like Reverend Mike and Reverend Anita. There are some kind of fun ones. This is the UUA Side with Love. This is one that a woman out in Denton, my last ministry, made for me. And I like it because it reminds me of how diverse we are as congregation members. And this one is a short one that a group of women I've been getting together with for years gave me. You can see it's a lot shorter than some of the others, but it's great. Like if I had been here when you did that Black Lives Matter, you made the TV, you made the news, I would wear a short one because then it doesn't get in the way of my knees. But this is my favorite one. And you've seen me wear this before. And it's my favorite because I had been lucky enough to be able to tell my dad I wanted to go to seminary, but he did not live long enough to see me actually get out of seminary. So I have this collection of his ties. And one of my very good friends, Kitsy Claxton, made this for me at the celebration of my ordination. And so it has these little bits of my dad's ties sewn into it. And then, as a surprise, and I'll come around here, she sewed a picture of my niece and I, and a picture of my spouse and I and my parents on the inside. And so these are what gets to be next to my heart. So during the first service, I also put the robe on because it reminds me that I'm actually not a layperson. You called me here to do a really important job with you. And it's a little bit different than my lay ministry was. And I was a lay leader for a really long time. But it was super hot, so I'm not going to do that. But as you can see, there's a lot of different kind of styles. You can also see my collar, which might surprise you, but it's when I'm not doing some really public things, I do wear a collar. You might not imagine how many people have been wounded by really negative messages from people who wear a collar. And so for some people out there in the world to see a collar and hear a message of inclusion is really healing. And so sometimes you might see me in a collar. So there are no children here. All children are colored. But thank you for joining me with that story. Each week, whether it is an online program or fortunately even small gathered numbers of programming here in the building, staff and volunteers are creating spaces in hopes to allow you some spiritual friendship and fellowship connections. We have spiritual enrichment groups. There's a men's group and story writing program that happens. The women's group is starting up again, so watch your newsletter for that. That will be on Zoom. We have some other things that will be coming up for adult programming as well. So all of the funds that you offer this congregation help us to do our programming and help us in hopes to prepare ourselves to live differently in the world, to engage in things that seek justice. There is a QR code on the back if you prefer to use a donate button electronically, or there will be the baskets that come around and your contributions are gratefully accepted. May this space and our relationships together hold all that we bring. May this space also hold all of those who are struggling on the shores of the United States trying to find safety and are sent away. May our care and concern go far beyond our walls, including us and others, and those spoken and unspoken. most mornings, especially appreciating since being back in Maine from Texas, I spend most of my time watching out the window with a cup of coffee in the morning. It's a spiritual practice that I start my day with and have for probably the last 15 years. The view's been different over time, of course, depending on where I am in my life. And before my most recent move to Portland, I was living in Topsom at a place where the trees gathered, if you looked out the second story back window, and they seemed to be reaching limb to limb to each other. And if I had my chair just right, I could pretend I was in a tree house and I wouldn't see all the backs of my neighbors' houses. So I go down in the morning and gather up my cup of coffee and return and sit in the early dawn of the day. It's just me and a daily troop of acrobatic squirrels. We spend our mornings together. They're a daring bunch, running and leaping across the trees, and I think they have kind of a general direction decided, their vision, if you will, but they don't have a well choreographed approach to how they'll get where they're going. I have a total appreciation for that. It's part of the fun. Sometimes they run down the limb, leaping to the next tree, and sometimes they run with the same abandon down to the edge and realize that they're going to fall if they leap. And they just all of a sudden stop and turn around and run back up the limb. I watch thinking that this is part of the adventures of life. Sometimes you're going to get there and be able to make that leap. And sometimes you're going to have as much joy as they do, running with abandon, not realizing, oh, this didn't work out so well. I might need to turn around. There is a place in this congregation that is rooted in that kind of daring, running with abandon. This congregation has believed in the possibility of thriving. And when we let go of this idea of our need to plan with some predestined ending of perfection, the world really opens up. Most of the time, it's this sort of adventure that I've been on in life. And sometimes I get to the limb and need to turn around. And sometimes it works out better than I ever could have imagined. Now, some of those adventures were planned and some were not planned. And like the squirrels, I end up occasionally a little bit to the point where the next move isn't very clear. I stop and catch my breath, pause for a moment, and change course. This permission giving to be curious, to take a pause, to wonder, to be creative, imagine thriving, with an invitation to grow beyond our current circumstances, our current skills, or even current ideas. I'm sure a few years ago, none of us, maybe some of the bigger churches who were already doing it, but none of us who were just meeting in person realized what we were in for. That we would be learning to use a multi-platform in ways that stretched our skill sets. Now, our story, I get to say that, our story here at Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church is filled with those kinds of adventures. In 1821, the first Universalist Society was founded in downtown Portland. I wonder if they imagined a possibility of thriving. This was followed by the founding of the first Universalist Church in Congress Square, which seated 1,100 people. They must have imagined thriving, 1,000 seats plus. While on the cusp of the Unitarian and the Universalist merger in the 60s, other churches were built, including the Church of the Messiah and All Souls Church. In a series of mergers in the 50s and 60s, 3 of these churches merged. And they joined the All Souls Church residing on the Westbrook campus with this stipulation that a new church be built in 10 years. The congregation then moved to a new building on Allen Avenue. And A2U2 was founded January 1, 1970. And by 1971, a new unified congregation had started in this building. Now, it wasn't too far after that, by the scheme of things, when families started coming. They started coming with their children. There was no room, and a wing was built on with RE classrooms. And then later, people got tired of trudging in through the mud and found that it wasn't really very accessible. And what kind of a way to live our faith if we say all are welcome, but by the way, you can't get to the building. It's too difficult. The parking lot is full of ruts and mud. And a process was undergone to take care and build a more accessible parking lot, to take care of the land. And in there somewhere, more land was purchased, imagining, thriving, space to build, space to do outdoor programming. Thank goodness. Imagine thriving. And here we are, after the last year and a half, committed to building a new sanctuary, the reaches that would be beyond the walls we're sitting in. The leadership of this congregation seeing the benefit of having been online and realizing that there were people who could have not come to church before online services who were now showing up on Zoom. Continuing to imagine the possibilities together. But it's a little risky to imagine possibilities. It won't always work out, like I was saying with the squirrels. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you have Coach 2 who says, that's okay, just try again. We're going to practice. And sometimes you just have to take a chance. I was reading that in 2010, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency had awarded Moderna up to $56 million to do some of their work. Wow, I wonder if they could have imagined the possibility of thriving in 2010. That would be so important in that risk, that funding risk. Life and love can be just as dangerous as falling off the edge of a limb sometimes. And I was reminded of this as I listened last year to the Berry Street essay. The Berry Street Conference has convened every year since 1820. And the Reverend William Ellery Channing, minister of the Federal Street Church of Boston at the time, invited his Massachusetts colleagues to come and meet and talk about liberal religion, different than liberal politics. Liberal religion that gives us permission to think about who we are without being told that we're doomed. Channing delivered a prepared address. He urged his colleagues to remember the bond of union, the same bond that associates us with other congregations in the Unitarian Universalist Association, the same bond that ties us and holds us together as we share our joys and concerns. And it's practicing those kinds of bonds that help us reach out beyond Unitarian Universalism. So that's a long way of saying Teresa Soto was the moderator. And the presenters were the Reverends Danielle DeBona, Kimberly Quinn Johnson, and Joseph Santos Lyons. They spoke about their experiences of what it's like to be an Indigenous, Black, and person of color in Unitarian Universalism. And their reflections offer us important reminders of what our faith can be and how to live forward in the kind of love that Bell Hooks describes this way, and I quote, "The practice of love offers no place of safety. We risk loss, hurt, and pain." Our Berry Street essayists invited us to court a little danger in our faith. Be excited and think about what kind of reputation we want to be known as. What are the possibilities that lie ahead? Our congregation is full of rooted history in believing in the possibility of thriving. My hope for us as we continue to live into our shared ministry is that persistence and forgiveness are part of our spiritual practice that prepares us for this thriving, that we create openness and sustain our movement forward. I invite you to let go of those statements that I don't know if you've ever heard here at Allen Avenue, but I've heard elsewhere. We don't do it that way here. As we move into this year together, I invite you to remain curious, open to adventure, and watch for the opportunity to leap through the air to the next limb. Together, we can do this. When we revisit our history, we realize the possibility of thriving that our history at Allen Avenue UU Church is built on. Keep asking, what is possible? Let go of certainty, invest in the possibility of thriving. Our history was built on faithful risking. Now here we're in our 200th anniversary, and I wonder, what will the preacher, the minister, be saying in their sermon about us 200 years from now? For closing, I share these words which come from a liturgical program called Enfleshed, and I have adapted these words. May you, child or child within, feel seen, heard, cherished, and celebrated. May you go forth in childlike wonder, infused with the possibility and connection with play, anticipation, hope, and thriving. May we follow the path of love, co-creating a world where people of all ages live free from fear and full of delight and possibilities. I invite you, following the postlude, to make your way outside or stay on chat and visit for a little while. I extinguish our flame, but not the light of hope, not the love of community.